Here we continue with social contract theory. In spring 2003, when United Nations invaded Iraq, their army surrendered immediately, like there wasn't a war at all. And after that, there was no enforcement forces, there was no police, and people looted the armories. Even the shops like Bakkala selling some machine guns, and people were just, robbing each other. That's why people start to get armed. So it was a very chaotic scenario and really, really bad times for Iraq. The question is, this is taken from the textbook, are Iraqis much different people, or is it just the typical response of humans when there is a lack of governmental authority and control here? The question here is, are they different culture, or suppose that in Turkey, if we have such a similar situation, will we behave in a similar way or not? That's the idea. This is an important question, in fact, and it has been underlined by the philosopher Thomas Hobbes. He wrote Leviathan, the study during English Civil War, where they had social anarchy. He underlined the essentiality of cooperation between people in society to cherish for the good of England. And the social contract is, what he defined here in Leviathan is the establishment of a set of rules to govern relations among citizens and a government capable of enforcing those rules as well. So as you can see, it is not enough to set only the rules. To enforce them is also goes hand in hand with them. So two of them must exist together in this social contract theory approach. Not surprisingly, Franco-Swiss philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau extended this social to the social contract, the social contract in the 18th century, where after these ideas, the revolution took place in France, as you remember, and the human rights increased. And he underlines that since no man has any natural authority over his fellows, see the importance of the individual, and since force alone bestows no right, if you're stronger than me, that doesn't mean that you have more right than me. All legitimate authority among men must be based on covenants. Covenants mean agreements. You see, these rights have been driven by the philosophers in history. You see, their works inspired today's human rights. Okay, let's see. Bill, a citizen of United States, for example, need to pay 10,000 tax yearly, for example, but in a particular way he can cheat and reduce it to $8,000 for tax payment. He can cheat, so he will just make a profit of $2,000, which is a lot for him if he manages to cheat like this. It is a negligible amount for government. $2,000 more, $2,000 less, who cares? In fact, everyone cares, but it's a small amount. But what restrains Bill from doing that? Why doesn't Bill cheat? This is the question, and here you see the importance, not only a system of laws, but a system of enforcing those laws as well, which results in punishment. If there is no enforcement of laws, we cannot talk about a social contract theory, or we cannot talk about a healthy society at all. That's why I tell you that those two of them must exist together here, okay, in the social contract. Those two must exist together. In the social contract theory, morality consists in the set of rules governing how people are to treat one another that rational people will agree to accept. Why do they do that? For their mutual benefit, on the condition that other follows those rules as well. That's the idea. If everyone in the society follows those rules, and if everyone are equal under those rules, now it will be for their mutual benefit. But be careful, if there are some particular people who are immune to those laws, who are above those laws, we cannot talk about a social contract theory approach again. It is invalid in this situation. There are some similarities between Kantianism and social contract theory in the means of there are universal rules that can be derived from a rational process, same. For Kant, if those rules can be universalized based on the categorical imperatives first formulation, and in social contract theory reflection, it is if they are accepted collectively and has benefits to the community. That's how you understand those rules are appropriate. There are other philosophers, Hobbes, Locke, etc. They all commented on the human rights, like the right to life, right to liberty, right to property, and now in the recent years, 20 years as well, right to privacy as well included in them. Human rights are important in the domain of social contract theory because it's based on it, the human rights. So people's rights put duties on other people as well. Since I have some rights, I put some duties on you too. There are two types of duties on you. Positive rights and negative rights. Negative rights are you shouldn't do anything for those other people. For example, freedom of speech. It is an absolute right. Negative rights are also called absolute rights, okay? If someone is talking about something, he is explaining his opinion, do nothing, okay? Absolute right. It is a negative right. You shouldn't do anything. You should stop and let him talk. But in positive right, you need to do something for his right. The right for free education, for example, the right for free health care, for example. Now, they also rely on budget constraints. In order to have, for example, 11 years of free education in Turkey, for example, or 12 years of free education in Turkey, for example, we all need to contribute with our taxes for that. For example, free health care for particular people who cannot earn enough. Again, we all share this burden together. It is based on budget constraints, of course. If it is a poor country, then these positive rights will be limited as well. That's why it is called a limited right, okay? The positive rights are also called limited rights. That's why, because they are based on budget constraints. So don't forget the two different names for them, and you can look at them from Wikipedia, whatever. So you see, negative rights, other name is absolute right, and positive rights, other name is limited right, okay? You can study them or read them from the book yourself too. Now comes the Rawls theory of justice, which is very important. This is an important, part of social contract theory. American philosopher John Rawls dealt with the inequality problem that we introduced in the consequentialism or utilitarianism approach. It fights or it challenges the utilitarianism distribution problem. Jean-Jacques Rousseau also noted that in his study The social state is advantageous to man only when all possess something and none has too much. Okay, maybe this inspired John Rawls too, right? He said this. So I mean, if there is an imbalance between people, so your society can experience some negative effects about that. So, what are the principles of justice of John Rawls? The first one is, each person may claim a fully adequate right as long as it is consistent with everyone else's claims, if everyone is equal. And the second one is, another important thing, any social or economic equality must satisfy two conditions. They should not depend on the positions in society. I mean, rich people having access to education, the poor people aren't. No, everyone has fair and equal opportunity to assume that. Even if you were born in a very poor family, and if you are a very good student, you need to have a chance, a mechanism within that society to be a doctor, for example, to be a well-educated, successful person in that society, for example. There should be a chance for this. That's what he's trying to say. And they should be any benefit or burden should be distributed to the greatest benefit of the least advantaged members of the society. This is called, very important, don't forget about that, and this is called the difference principle in Rawls' principle of justice. It is like the catch-up logic in games. See, some games have some adaptive mechanisms in it, like a limited version of AI, for example. If you play better, the AI of the game gets better automatically. And if you play worse, the AI of the game plays worse to make the game session more enjoyable for you, for example. That's the idea. More or less, it's like a top. So, if, for example, you're distributing a benefit for people, you should give less to the advantaged people already. No need for them, because they're already in good position. But you should give more to poor people. That's the idea about it. Or suppose that you're collecting tax. If you collect the same ratio from rich people and poor people, like our tax mechanism, for example, so it doesn't make sense in Rawls' principle of justice or the difference principle here, because you should get more from, you should put more burden on the better, the people in better condition in society. That's the idea about the burdens and the benefits in society. So what are the advantages? It is framed in the language of rights, human rights, which is fits the Western approach as well, individualism, good. It explains why rational people act out of self-interest in the absence of a common agreement. There is no common agreement, but we still act out of self-interest for people. Just imagine if we don't have it, what happens? Suppose that there is a gasoline shortage, and for 2 days a week you need to use public transportation to go to work or school. So in that days, for example, you look out and you see that no one is using the public transport, and you can easily say that, okay, why me? I mean, if no one is going there, I will go to. Okay, you just go to them. And if in the second situation you look and see that everyone is using the public bus at that particular day, and you say that, okay, I mean, everyone is going with bus already. I mean, me, one more, one less would not make any difference. Let me go by my own car. You see, in both cases, even if all people are using public transportation, or none of them are using transportation, we reach the same conclusion if we don't agree with this common agreement. Because what if everyone does that? Unfortunately, everyone in the town logically reaches the same conclusion. So, we shouldn't act out of self-interest here. How can we solve this problem? Not surprisingly, yes, punishment. That's the way. Otherwise, it won't work, right? That's why I told you those two components should work together. Where is it? Let me go back. Look at this, okay? That's why they should work together here to make this social contract theory approach work. And the punishment comes here into stage, and it is okay in this situation, acceptable. And when you compare self-interest versus common good, so cooperation is important between the society members, and the selfish people will suffer negative consequences and punishment in those situations. It also, those social contract theory also provides a clear ethical analysis of some important moral issues regarding the relationship between people and government. Like punishment is like maybe people put in jail, for example. Why are some people put in jail? One example of universal approach here is, or the basics of human rights here. In 1960, in North Carolina, where segregation was taking place, the Woolworth store was a white-only place where 4 Afro-Americans went there and sit in looking for service. We also have rights here too. Okay, they were just maybe they faced some negative. Maybe the police came and accused them, but then 85 people came the next day. The idea is the social contract theory agrees that everyone receives certain benefits in return of certain burdens as well. Although what they did was illegal of that time, we can see that in social contract theory point of view, what they did was right. So it is open for what can I say, evolution here. Okay, the other ones are not open for evolution. For example, cultural relativism. I mean, we cannot say that what they did in 1960s is okay, ethically correct. If you say that, if you say this, it means that what you're doing is cultural relativism. Let me just try to show you. It is cultural relativism. Can I find? Okay. See? It doesn't, cultural relativism is not open for evolution here. So if you defend that, it means that you're not talking about social contract theory, you're talking about cultural relativism, don't forget. Okay, let's continue with the negative sides of the social contract theory. In fact, there is not a real, absolute paper and pen contract here. None of us has signed the contract. It is an hypothetical contract here. They are, what are they here? Rules. Those rules are what reasonable people could or would agree to do in a society, not what they have agreed to. Okay, they are non-historical. They do not suppose the agreement has ever or indeed could eventually be entered to. Okay, they are not based on the history. It evolves, and moral guidelines are supposed to be the result of analysis, not history again. So social contract theory is not cultural relativism in this case. We just discussed about the thin line between them. And some actions can be characterized in multiple ways again, just like in Kantianism. Like the rules and rights are pretty similar here in this situation. And it does not explain how to solve a moral problem when the analysis reveals conflicting rights. Again, in abortion case, for example, this will clash mother's right to privacy and fetus's right to life. They can clash each other. It's not easy to solve this moral problem with social contract theory. and it may be unjust to those people who are incapable of upholding their side of contract. This is possible. The people who deliberately break the rule, and there should be a difference between the people who deliberately break the rules or who are incapable of understanding the rules at all. Again, it is a hard issue. For example, the textbook gives such a case: the drug addicts stealing for drug. Okay, so should we take them as criminals and put them in prison, or should we treat them as mentally ill and put them as a hospital? So it's again a hard issue to decide, because they might be incapable of understanding the rule or holding their side of contract. Anyway, it is a legal, analytical, and answers to question why. And ethical decision making is done by logical reasoning on facts and commonly held values. And objectivism is also again another important property of those ethical theories here. Social contract theory is one of them as well.